How the heck are you, everybody? I'm Fastidious. Welcome to my channel, and welcome to my Mage Artifact tier list. Just to catch you up to speed, this is the third of what I think will be 6 tier lists leading up to an official master tier list that I will make of all the artifacts in the game. Today we are talking mages. We start off with fighters, then we do defenders. I'll have links to both of those, so go check them out. I'm quite proud of this work. Thank you to Mitchell, my editor, who's helping me a ton. Without further ado, we've got mage artifacts to discuss. I will tell you, I think this might be the class with the largest chasm in quality. The good ones are really good. The bad ones are kind of jank. They're kind of terrible. Let's get into it.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
Alrighty, friends, so first up, we have got a legendary artifact, Ionian Time. I'm going to put it on the screen right now, and you guys will see for all of these artifacts, just like I have done in the previous 2 videos, I will include a description image with the artifact itself, both at base promo, so level 1, and max promo, level 6. So level 1 when you level it up, and then level 25 when you level it up. Hope that makes sense. Let's get going. So base promo for Ionian Time, we have got dealing AoE damage increases heroes' AoE damage by 2%. This effect can stack up to 5 times and lasts for 3 seconds. That is at base promo. At max promo level 6. Dealing AoE damage increases the hero's AoE damage by 2%. Nothing has changed. This effect can stack up to 10 times and last for 3 seconds. So not much has changed, huh? It's just going to be a damage boost at base level if you can get max stacks. And keep in mind, it's only lasting 3 seconds. You can get to 10% increased damage, and then it can be 20% with those 10 stacks at level 6. So keep in mind, you can get max stacks without too much difficulty because it's counting each hit from an AoE as an instance of damage. If you got someone like Virna, who base is doing a 10 hitter, and then when she gets those extra stacks from her passive, it can be a 13 hitter. I mean, it's pretty easy to keep it up, but at the end of the day, you don't really look for damage boosts on stuff like this. You look for attack boosts, other things like that, and it's only 20%. So it's just not special at all. It's a bit clunky. I will say it's fairly plug and play because as long as you've got a proper AoE mage, and there are plenty of AoE mages, you know, it can work. I don't like it one bit. So I think it's going to end up at the very back end of C, and that's just because there's such terrible ones that we have coming. You may also notice in this tier list and all my other tier lists, everything has to start down in D. That's because when I load up the images, I have to populate the tier list. So we start them all in D. Some of them are going to stay there. A few of these are going to stay there. The rest will get their different appropriate tier rating. So next up, after Ionian Time, we've got Heaven's Rage. So this is one that has grown on me, but it's not good. Or rather, it's not special. It's a simple description, so at base promo, a critical hit increases critical damage by 25% for 3 seconds, and then at max, a critical hit increases critical damage by 45% at 3 seconds. So plus 45% crit damage as long as you keep critting. Later on in the game, you're gonna, not even that late, depending on how you're building, what kind of gear you're getting, where you're prioritizing, you're gonna build all your DPS with max crit. They're gonna be crit capped, so basically every time they hit, that you're going to get that 3 seconds. As long as they've got an interval better than 3 seconds, they have things to hit, you will keep 100% uptime on that plus 45% crit damage at max level, plus 25% crit damage at base, anything in between, depending on where you have got it. It's solid. It's like aggressively solid. I will say, I do think it has some real end game potential if we get more mages that are introduced in the game that are guild boss viable. I was thinking pretty hard about it. Right now, it really is just like the 3 different Infernal Lords, so Soul Cadens, Twin Fiend, and of course Pyros, my boy Uncle Pyros. And then we've got Nocturne. I mean, there's an eye, but you know, it's not super viable. And the 45% boost, it's not insane. Compare that to something like the 60% boost from fighters you get with a Flux Pendant, as long as health is under 50%. So put on like a Chaotic Fighter, for example. You know, it's a lot more powerful. That's 33% more powerful, all the way up from 45% to 60%. It's not bad at all, but it is just aggressively average. No, not aggressively average, aggressively kind of good. Let's call it that. I think I can't decide between B and A, but to be fair, I honestly do think I'm going to put it at the top end of B. I might end up settling slightly higher, but it's just strictly outclassed by 2 different legendary artifacts I'm staring at right now. And for that reason, I just don't see you building that up. Remember, 45%, kind of cool. At base promo, 25%, I don't know. It's all right. It really is outclassed by some other things. So let's continue. I think it probably will stay there, like at the top end of B. Continuing now, we've got the Nightmare Samsara. Speaking of legendary artifacts that just strictly outclass it, Nightmare Samsara, shout out to War Guides. So when I first started playing our first collab ever, he's like, you've heard of Nightmare Samsara, right? And he was just dead right. It's just one of the best legendary artifacts in the game. It's literally best in slot for many heroes. It's supremely powerful. So thank you to War Guides for turning me on to it. I've been using it ever since. So at base promo, restores 5% rage for every 5 attacks. And then at level 6, at max promo, restores 7.5% rage for every 5 attacks. And this is just every time you have 5 attacks. So you put this on a mage with high attack speed, you can keep crazy rage restoration coming your way, right? So think Mari. It doesn't take too much. She's got a base attack interval of 2 seconds. It doesn't take something so incredible. I think it's like 430 or 450 to get that cut in half to 1 second. That might sound crazy, but later on you'll have maxed out mythic attack speed amulets, things like that. You can get these like kind of support spammer mages, as I like to call them, Mari, Laurel, Aeon, heroes like that. You can get them flying, and it's not with a crazy investment. You can do that mid-game, right? As long as you've got gold and gear to level up. I love it. I love it. It's straight up S. There's not that much more to it. It's super functional, even with the 5% restoration every 5 attacks at base promo. And then, of course, it's 50% better when you get up to 7.5% rage. With a lot of heroes like Mari or like Laurel, if you want to get some extra rage out of her, not just use her as a talent abuser, which is a great way to use it, but you can kind of do both. You want that ult coming up as quick as possible. You want Mari getting those giant freezes as frequently as possible, not just relying on the ice crystals. Mari's ult freeze is crazy. You know, Aeon, if you want to use that vortex, it's a great option. Also, speaking of those Infernal Lords, if you're having trouble earlier on and maybe you're not running like an Infernal Rage comp or something like that and abusing Laurel's talent, you might want their ult coming up as much as possible, and this is going to be the best way to do it. So it is just supremely strong. I really love this artifact. On to the next one. Like I said, there's going to be a big gap. You're going to see it start, the gap will start existing. Speaking of a bad artifact, and one that is just straight up way worse than Nightmare Samsara, we have got the Soulbinding Crystal. I hate this artifact. It's going to stay in D. For now, we'll put it at the back of D. There might be a couple ones that, actually, I can see one right now that will be lower. But what this does at base promo, restores 3% rage when killing the target, cooldown 5 seconds, and then at max promo, restores 5% rage when killing the target, cooldown 5 seconds. There's a cooldown. It's like not great. So best case scenario, if you're killing a unit every 5 seconds, like consistently, then you can keep getting every 5 seconds that 5% rage boost. When's that happening, dude? Like, it may be very early mid-game, you could see a functionality for that, but it's so niche. It's really just going to be like XP raids, resource raids, gold raids, stuff like that. That silly thing in Void Rift where we have to do those kind of resource raidy things, and then it's going to be Gear Raid 1. Other things, you just don't have enough mobs to make this relevant. That 5% boost from maximum promotion Soulbinding Crystal is equal to the every 5 hits base promo boost from Nightmare Samsara. A lot easier to guarantee. You've got a speedy hero that can restore some 5% base level rage regen whenever they get 5 hits out, than it is to like, hey, I hope every 5 seconds I'm killing someone. I mean, for a lot of content, you're going to bring multiple sources of DPS. You don't know who's going to pick off the kill. It's super hard to control. I legitimately hate this artifact. I really hate it. I think it might have been the first legendary artifact I ever pulled on my first account ever. And even back then, I was like, this doesn't sound that good. And I was right. On to the next. Let's see what we have got queued up. We've got Spellcaster's Echo. A very solid, easy to use artifact. So this is really good if you want to get a steady and consistent, unlike the Soulbinding Crystal, if you want to get a consistent form of extra rage, but you have a hero that might not be like a spam god, like an Aeon or a Mari, or like the way I like to build Laurel, right? Because to get the maximum benefit from Nightmare Samsara, you need the kind of hero that's hitting a lot. You need a lot of groups of 5 attacks, right? That's how you're going to get that boost. For Spellcaster's Echo, at base promotion, you will recover 10% rage after using a skill. At max promotion, recover 15% rage. It's just very straightforward. If you've got kind of like a DPS hero or someone with an expensive ult, someone that's not going too fast, this is just a nice way, a nice, easy plug-and-play way to get some extra rage. It's straightforward. I don't think I need to talk too much more about it. To me, it is solidly B. Probably the end of B, but solidly B. Let's go next now. We've got Tear of Twilight. It seems as if every class, it's been true so far, every class has the God artifact. And when it comes to mages, not much else to say. Tear of Twilight reigns supreme. It is so gosh darn strong. So at base promo, attack is increased by 20% when deployed. When HP is lower than 80%, the attack increase effect is reduced to 10%, so it's cut in half. Then at max promo, everything remains the same except the boost is all the way up to 30% increased attack. And then again, if you drop below that 80% health threshold, the increased effect is reduced in half to 15%. As long as you can control that you're keeping your health up. I mean, 30% increased attack, and that is a post-deployment buff. So that is going to scale off of all the attack you've already built onto your hero through Pantheon, through the base values of the artifact, through all the gear, of course, all those great promotions, leveling it up, starring it up, everything all together, faction bonuses that you might have from collection. Then you apply a 30% boost. It's so good. It's just adds so much attack, dude. You could totally, let's just say you went nuts and you built your Comet with 20,000 attack. You're later on in the game. You can do it if you want. Or, let's say you built Kriya. She's got higher base attack, so you just really wanted to push your Kriya to the limit. I do not suggest you do that, but if you wanted to, with like 5,200 base attack, you throw this thing on her with a lot of work into her, you get her to 20,000 attack. That's an extra 6,000 attack. I mean, enough said, right? The Tear of Twilight is godly. I will say, we have an artifact coming up towards the end. Or actually not, I think it might even be the last one. It's one of my absolute favorites in the whole game. It has a very silly name now since it was renamed. But there is a situation, if you can't keep the health up, that it can be outclassed by a legendary artifact. However, just keep the health up, do it properly. And I will say, don't think once HP goes under 80%, you lose the max effect. Once it goes back over 80%, I've had people ask me this, you are back up to the full effect. So let's say you've got it at max promo, 30%. For a moment, you drop to 75% health or something. Now you're at 15% increased attack. The second you go back up over 80%, so you're healed up, something like that, you get some kind of HP regeneration or recovery. Now it's back to 30%. It's amazing. There's a reason everyone's always talking about the TOT, formerly known as the TOS. Used to be the Tear of Starlight. I think Tear of Twilight actually sounds cooler. It's a good rename. On to the next, we got the North Storm. This is the worst artifact in the faction, bar none. Ooh, that's one I love. That's the White Tower Trinket. Where is it? Oh my god, I'm blind. There it is. The North Storm. Awful. 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 Let me read it to you. Base promo, when shielded, increases attack by 10%. Then max promo, when shielded, increases attack by 15%. So why is this so god-awful? Because it is. So it is a legendary artifact, and it is completely and strictly outclassed by Keen Wisdom, which is an epic artifact. If you don't mind, Mitchell, let's put a picture of Keen Wisdom up right now. So at base promo, Keen Wisdom is at an 8% increased attack, which is worse than the base promo of the North Storm. However, no condition. You don't have to worry about shields. You could be thinking, oh, but I'll bring my Nocturne. He's a Northerner. He has dual faction, and I'll bring a Northern Lord. That will give us a shield. Yeah, frickin' sure. So you're relying on this conditional thing just to make it a little bit better than an epic artifact. But moreover, if you look at the max promotion of Keen Wisdom, it's better. And you don't even have to go to max promotion. You can just go to 4 stars, you can get to level 19, and you can get it to 16%. So you've got an epic thing that's such an easier investment, so much easier to build, and it's strictly better. It's 16% from the Keen Wisdom, no conditions, no strings attached. This is 15% when you make a big investment making a legendary artifact all the way to max. This is terrible. This is a worst artifact in the game candidate. Burn them all. You can save one copy because maybe they'll buff it because it sucks so freaking much. But for now, gross, yucky, we hate it. North Storm, no thanks. That is, I'm not going to F because technically any artifact is better than no artifact. I explained that in other videos. If I had F it would go. Now let's go to Watchguard's Wisdom. Hey, look, another one I don't really like. I will say this one's kind of funky, and I could see with the right mage eventually getting introduced, it could be interesting. But for now, not so much. So at level 1 base promotion, increases the chance of triggering an additional basic attack by 0.2% for every 1% increase in rage. This effect can be triggered up to 1 time every 5 seconds. This is you need like a PhD in artifact deciphering to truly understand what this means on a first read. Essentially, as you generate more and more rage, you have a likelihood to trigger an extra basic attack, and that goes up. But there's lots of decimals. There's a lot of things to worry about. Let's look at max promo. The only thing that changes is the additional basic attack for every 1% increase in rage goes up by 0.5%. I think that's an easier number for us to wrap our head around. So if you're at max promo, let's say you're at 50% rage, you have a 25% chance on your basic attack that it hits again, right? So if you're at 90% rage, so you're nearly full, you're nearly ready to ult, now you've got a 45% chance. It is really cool, but I've been thinking pretty hard about it. And you guys let me know in the comments, because this is one I think potentially, not that I slept on, but I hadn't looked deeply into. I just don't know which mage has a very special basic attack you want going again. Like someone like Mari has an amazing basic attack, right? She does slow, but the slow lasts for 2 or 3 seconds depending on your awakenings and your skill ups, right? So I don't really know who you need to get those basic attacks on. You might thinking, well, an extra basic attack is nice for DPS. So you're thinking someone like Nocturne, that kind of speaks to me. But Nocturne, with his true damage and that kind of thing, wouldn't you rather just having more increased attack on him? And there's a really, really good legendary artifact we're coming up on that does that, as well as the Tier Twilight that does that amazingly. I just don't see the use. But if there is some mage that is introduced that has some basic attack that you really just want happening as much as possible, this could be something like the Watchguard's Ambition, which is kind of like the fighter version of this artifact. If you don't remember, that one is a 10% at base promotion, at no promos, 10% chance just on every hit that has an extra one, so no weird kind of math you have to do and condition on the rage, and then at max promotion it's a 15% chance. So here you can get a much higher percent chance, but it's constantly a sliding scale depending on how much rage you have. It's quite complicated. I can't think of a mage that wouldn't have a better option, but I also don't think it's useless. I'm going to put it in C. I'm going to put it above Ionian Time. You can see, guys, no A artifacts right now. There's a chasm that exists. There's a lot of just not good mage artifacts. That's the Watchguard's Wisdom. On to the next. We've got Tidal Ring. This is one I'm going to have to go in on because people seem to really like this one, and you guys are pretty wrong. You really are. So there's a lot going on here. So increases damage by 10%. Dealing damage has a 25% chance of slowing down the target by 50% for 2 seconds. This effect can be triggered up to 1 time every 4 seconds. Then, at max promo, nothing changes except that the dealing damage has a 50% chance of inflicting that slow. And it's a 50% slow. So it's a solid slow, but it's not special. It's not the terrible Kriya slow, but it's not a great slow like Mari or Lasir or something like that. It's just not that good. It's trying to do a bunch of things. Getting the slow, it's nice. I reviewed Morrigan way back when I first started playing, and I said, hey, you know, if you're running a cultist team, you're running Morrigan because you have her, and you need someone to put out crowd control effects to get the boost from having a cultist lord like Morrigan or Aeon, then it's a nice option, right? However, if you're running that team, someone has it. I know all the heroes now. You are going to get this from somewhere, or you bring a Mari, you know, or you bring... I'm trying to think of other good options not from the faction. You bring a Maul, right? These can get you some crowd control effects. There's no world, I think, where you're sacrificing these. There's a big opportunity cost, right? You're having the trade-off of going for some of these much better artifacts because you want to get that slow. So if you ignore the slow, which I quite frankly think you should, and that can only be triggered up to every 4 seconds. So it's not like it's the greatest slow in the world. It's a half slow, a 50% slow, not a nice trigger interval. All you're looking at is a damage increase. And it's not good. I just told you attack's better than damage. We already have better ways to get attack. You're going to see better ones as well. And the Tier Twilight obviously reigns king. 50% damage increase. It's a 1.15 multiplier. That's totally maxed out. You're going to max out this mythic artifact for a 15% damage increase? No way. Late game, if you're going to max out a mythic, go for Iax Rage. And of course, if you have the option, obviously go for Tier Twilight if you're going for damage. It's so strictly outclassed. You'd be better off with the Nightmare Samsara if it's this kind of hero. The kind of hero you're going to want to put out slows is going to be attacking a lot, right? So maybe do a Nightmare Samsara, get the ult up more frequently. That'll be far more useful. The only way this has a use is if you're in desperate need for more crowd control, but that point is almost non-existent early game and is literally going to be non-existent mid and late game. So maybe early game it has viability. I honestly think it's bad, and I see people skilling this up, and I really don't like it. This is one I just keep 1 copy of. Well, I keep 2. I keep 2 copies of all the mythics. I'll have a cleanse guide eventually, but only assuming there will be a buff. I think it's essentially unusable. I use it on takeovers where accounts literally have nothing else. It's not as bad as some of the other stuff, so I'll put it in C. But I actually think, call me crazy. No, that is crazy. I was going to put it behind the Watchguard's Wisdom. I can't do that, but it's going to go in C for sure. So the chasm continues. Now for another one. So let's see what's next. We got the Tome of Horror. This one is kind of cool. This one would be really good if Nightmare Samsara didn't exist. Let's get into it. So at base promo, attacking slowed targets increases attack speed by 30 and rage regen by 25% for 5 seconds. This effect can only be triggered 1 time every 8 seconds. So that is the reason I don't love this one. I'll get into it after I read the max promo. So attacking slow targets increases attack speed by 30 and now rage regen by 50%, so twice as much, and everything else is the same. It lasts 5 seconds, can be triggered 1 time every 8 seconds. The way this works, okay, it's not as good as it sounds. You think, all right, so if I can get it happening a lot where I'm lining it up perfectly and I'm thinking what kind of uptime am I going to get on those boosts, on the attack speed boost and the rage regen boost? Well, it'll be every 5 out of 8 seconds. That isn't how this works from all my testing. Could I be wrong? I don't think so. But it's possible. So you can let me know if you love this one. But the way it seems to be working when I'm doing it, because you just have to look at it with your eyes, it seems you get it for 5 seconds, and then it can't be triggered again for another 8 seconds. So it's really 5 out of every 13 seconds, because it's 5 on, 8 off. It's not bad, because Rage Regen is freaking awesome, right? The deeper I get into this game, having the right amount of Rage Regen on certain heroes, especially certain mages, like think of a Lasir or something, it's really powerful. But that being said, the kind of heroes that might benefit from this might already be super high attack speed anyway, right? Because there's some kind of spammer debuffer hero. And 30 attack speed is going to have not the greatest return, because you might already be up at 400, 450, 500, 550 attack speed that you built on it, right? I am thinking more late game, end game. So I don't love it. I think it's going to be strictly outclassed by Nightmare Samsara in a lot of places. And again, the chasm persists. I'm putting it at B. The question is, does it go above or below IX's Rage? I think for me, it's going to go right below IX's Rage. That's just because I could see IX's Rage have a value spike as we get more kind of guild boss mages, or maybe more content where there's low defense and you want to go heavy into crit damage. I like it. But you can see, still no A's. Let's continue. What is up now? We've got Unfortunate Skull. All right, another one I like. It's fine, but I'm just not crazy about it. So damage received is increased by 20%. I don't like that. For a lot of content where you have AoE damage, and this is an AoE damage artifact, like Gear Raid 1, you can take a lot of damage. Think of those Scourge guys with their auras, their bloody auras. Do you want your Virna or something? Do you want your, God forbid, your Kriya taking extra damage? She'll die in 2 seconds. The girl sucks, right? So an extra received damage by 20%, I really don't love it. And then you've got a damage boost only on AoE damage, but there's a lot of heroes that only do AoE damage, increased by 25%. I mean, that's nice, but again, a damage increase is going to be inferior to an attack increase, but that's pretty solid. I will say, I do like this one at max promo. It's a huge investment, and there's almost no world where you would still choose it over Tear of Twilight. So for that reason, it is going to get a big knock against it. But damage received is increased now only 10%, and AoE damage is increased by 35%. I would really like this artifact if they just took out the damage received being increased. I don't think you need any penalty. I don't think the AoE damage boost is that strictly powerful. You're usually going to be running these heroes. It's going to be on like a cultist hero. They're probably already going to get a boost from Aeon, eventually Apisu, or of course Morrigan or Demi. I don't see it that you need so much extra increased damage. I think you're going to want extra increased attack. We've got the mythic option in Tier Twilight. We're going to be getting very shortly to the legendary option. I do think that is outclasses it, and for that reason, it goes to B. It'll be the top end of B. This all kind of comes down to what we're working up to. I'll just tell you, it's White Tower Trinket. It's going to be the last one, if I'm not mistaken. White Tower Trinket, actually, it's what we're about to do right now. We're finally onto it, so let's talk about it. White Tower Trinket is legendary. It's easy to build, and it's just so good. It's so easy to use, and it's just so excellent. And I do think the attack boost that it gives is going to outclass the damage boost when you take into account the increased damage taken. For me, this is just a hard B. All right, so what is up now? We've got the White Tower Trinket. This is how we're going to wrap it up, because remember, these guys are hanging out in D. Don't get it twisted. So at level 1 base promo, when deployed, increases attack by 12%. When there are no adjacent allies, gain an extra attack speed increase of 20. Pretty cool. 12% at base level. Compare that to a Keen Wisdom, which is going to give you 8%. This also, so now we've got a better version. Now the Epic isn't better than Legendary. Compare that to the North Storm. This is just strictly better in every single way. And then if you can finesse a situation where there's no adjacent allies, who wouldn't want a little extra attack speed, right? If we look at it at max promo, when deployed, now the increase is 18%. So this is 2% better than a max out Keen Wisdom, so it's super viable. Also, if you look at it this way, it's only 2% worse than a base level Tier of Twilight, which obviously is super rare and hard to come by. So you get 18%. And now when there's no adjacent allies, an extra attack speed boost of 35. It's really good. I really like this one. I don't think I'm going to put it on S, because I just think the Nightmare Samsara deserves to be alone. But this is an A, and this is part of the reason a lot of these things went lower, because this is really easy to use. Even at base promo, it's better than a lot of things. Getting the 18% is really nice. And if you can build one up, all the time when I do takeovers, I will test it out, and I will consistently choose to use this at like promo 3 over this at like promo 2, right? Which is what most people seem to have. The White Tower Trinket is honestly just darned good. And here you go, guys. We've got, it's not even a chasm now that I made it all look like this. I mean, look at that. We got 3 options. We got 1S+, 1S, 1A. Then we got some solid options in B, and then just trash. These two Ds, I guess we didn't have as many Ds as we wanted. There was an argument for Ionian Time in D. I don't think there was an argument for the Watchguard's Wisdom. Maybe an argument for Ionian Time. I'm going to leave it the way it is. You can see it's very bottom heavy. The top one is amazing. Nightmare Samsara is unbelievable. White Tower Trinket, an amazing low budget, free to play. You haven't pulled the Tier Twilight yet option, but the rest, I don't know. The Bs are usable. There you go. Those are the mages. Maybe there'll be a little controversy here. I could see there being some Tidal Ring stands. Quite frankly, I think you're wrong, but I'm willing to hear you out. So get in the comments. Let me know what you think. We'll wrap it up there. We've got 2 more class ones left. We actually have 3 videos left before the big final reveal of my master official artifact tier list. So next up is going to be healers. That's a pretty spicy one, a really cool one. Then we will wrap up the class-specific ones with marksmen. I saved it for last. I think it's the most fun. Maybe that or fighters. That's why I did one first, one last. And then I'll very quickly have a mini video covering the 5 epic artifacts. You know I want to be thorough. And then we'll have released the official master artifact tier list. Guys, it means so much to me that you've been enjoying this series. It is probably one of the highest level effort video series I've ever made. Just prepping these images takes me way too long, so I really do appreciate you guys watching and enjoying. Feel free to share them with your guildmates, with your family, heck, even your mother. I've been Fastidious. I'll see you in the next one.
Fastidious.